everyone. We are so happy to introduce the extraordinary Hans Wilhelm. He is a mystic, an author, an illustrator of over 200 books, basically for all ages, and including some together with Byron Katie. His books have sold over 40 million copies and are translated into 30 languages. His incredible storytelling is what drew me to invite him on today's show. So Hans has recently created over 130 short YouTube videos in which he visually explains the spiritual laws of the universe. In these videos, you can watch him literally drawing the dynamics of these laws and see how all the dots connect. And this is an absolutely unique visual presentation, and it's made his videos so successful. They've been watched over 17 million times. So Hans says his wish is to inspire viewers to explore spirituality and to look at the bigger picture, the perspective of their life. When we see how everything fits together and there are no mistakes, we will begin to grasp the perfection and the love that is the foundation of everything. Hans, welcome. It's a true pleasure to have you on the show today. Thanks.
Ross, it's an honor and pleasure to be with you, and thank you for thinking of me. And I'm delighted to be here and see what else we can add and share here together. I'm really excited.
Well, my friend, I was drawn to you. That's a little pun because you were drawing on your videos. And I, honestly, it really was something like that to where, I'm on YouTube and it just kind of comes up in your feed and I'm just like, well, that's different. That's really odd. And then I clicked on one and then another and then another and another. And I'm just like, I couldn't get enough of it. It was just amazing. So what sparked you to create such a unique way of explaining your concepts and ideas and beliefs?
Well, I wasn't going to go public with my spiritual beliefs, but it was when my father died many years ago. And before he died, he didn't believe in life after death. So I told him, look, Dad, if that maybe life continues and these are the things which you may experience, like you may be welcome, there you may be see old family members and so on. You have to your life review, 10 things about what might happen if your consciousness will be still around after your physical death. And he just smiled and says, all right, that's your belief. I don't believe in it. He had no problems dying, but he didn't believe in it. It was only 5 years later when I was at a book signing when suddenly a total stranger who was a medium came up to me and says, oh, your father just entered and asked me to come over to you to tell you to thank you for what you have told him, because everything what you mentioned came true and it helped him so much on the other side. And then he says he is now working at the receiving side for souls which have passed on. And he sees so much confusion and so many people who don't know what happened. They don't even know that they are dead. It's sort of a lot of confusion. People just have no idea what will happen after death. So would I please write some books, what I know, and inform other people and so on. So I think books are too limited. And I also thought something, it's difficult to teach older people. They are so stuck in their religion and their beliefs. So just respect that and leave them. I would like to contact the young people, because when I was young, I was a deep searcher and I was very confused because I didn't believe what the churches were teaching us. So I really was searching and interested in seeing and hearing different views. So I said, let's do YouTubes, very short one, 5 to 10 minutes YouTubes, because the attention span of young people is very short. And so I used my talent as an illustrator and writer to use in a very simple way. And as you have mentioned, for instance, here, I have got how karma works, very simple, how you see how somebody does something bad, and then you just get a record in the Akashic records, in the repository planets, and it comes back. When you see this drawn out, it makes so much more sense than if you just merely hear it.
Exactly.
So that's what I do, and I enjoy it. And I must be honest, I do it for myself, firstly, because it helps me to clarify these very difficult, not difficult, but sometimes complex and totally new spiritual laws, which are new to me because I haven't heard them. I mean, they're ancient and infinite, but I haven't heard some of this. And then when I draw it out, it makes sense to me. And I also follow Einstein's famous words that says, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you probably haven't understood it yourself. So I make it so simple and clear that even a young person can see it. And I know from the feedback, a lot of parents share my videos with their young children because they get it very quickly and very easy. And it is so simple because, as Gabriele, through whom most of this material that I share comes, he always says, God is ingenious simplicity. It's not complex. He doesn't have secrets from his children. It's very clear. You just have to be interested to find out and look at it, and you will find out that everything fits together perfectly.
Wow. So, and what caught my attention as well is that, we think in pictures.
Right.
If we think of an elephant, we see an elephant in our mind. And I think that is what has made your work so popular and so incredible, because there's things that I've watched in your videos that I'm just like, I never quite thought of it that way until I saw the pictures and the way that you did it. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. Now, you said something that I thought was very interesting as well, is that you said that the pictures give each thought its unique form and shape, and that now, for clarity, so that you're saying that they're totally independent entities?
Thoughts are living entities, not quite like a soul or a spirit, and if they are not continuously fed, they dry out, but it's an energy. And every thought we are having is a thought that wants to be actualized. Like, for instance, if I want to have an ice cream right now, 5 minutes later, I says, I really, really want an ice cream. And then eventually I go to the refrigerator and get my ice cream. Every thought wants to become manifested. And if you understand, and now we have got something like 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day in our head, and it's a lot, and they come in very fast and go through it. But most of these thoughts are not are very repetitive. It's always the same thoughts we are having. And the other thoughts, many of them are not ours. We pick them up from the environment, because thoughts are like floating entities, like we call them vagabond thoughts. And when we have something similar in our own vibration, like, for instance, fear, then a thought complex which represents the energy of fear can come close to us, attach itself to us, and make our fear stronger. So our sudden fear, why we suddenly feel fearful, may not have been caused within ourselves. It may have been caused from an outside source, like an outside thought. So we are continuously surrounded by thoughts. They are sort of like walking through a sewage of all these kind of different thoughts, and most of them are not pleasant. So it helps us to learn in life to calm our mind, like through meditations, prayers, introspective. So to look at ourselves, because we have one thought after the other, one thought after the other, so fast, so fast, so fast. And yet every thought, in a way, is also registered in our aura and in our soul, and eventually in our body, and also in the repository planets from where they eventually may return to us as karma. So we are continuously sending out energy, which are thoughts, and we are also easily affected by thoughts that are like our own energy that can attach itself to us.
So we in our trainings, we consider thoughts a type of time travel, because we're either living in the past or we're living in the future.
Right.
And trying to get people to get into the now, the present is very difficult, and keep them there. And so what is your opinion as far as why do you think that humans have this insatiable need to predict the worst possible outcomes for themselves?
I would immediately.
That's where a lot of the fear comes from.
Yeah, I think that is our ego. Our ego doesn't want us to be happy. Our ego wants us continuously searching, being unhappy. This is the goal of the ego, because the ego identifies with our body. So we continuously are looking to satisfy our ego, which is a totally hopeless endeavor. So we try to do everything for our body. We want to prestige, we want food, we want everything, etc. Our thinking is totally body-oriented. And we fear physical. I mean, what we're afraid of is discomfort. When we say fear, we basically fear nothing, but it is a fear of losing our comfort zones. And the comfort zone is partly our body. It can be our money, it can be our lover, it can be anybody like this, but that is what we fear. We fear the loss of something, that we no longer have that comfort of that presence. And that is totally our ego, because it's all related to our world around us. It has nothing to do with our spiritual side, which is infinite and abundant. But our ego limits our thinking, because what else happens with the moment we think of something, let's say we think about my finances, my bank account, and it's going down, for instance. Suddenly, my whole focus is on my bank account, and I'm thinking for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Meanwhile, reality around me is non-existent. So I'm going out of the reality, which I am with all the things and people around me, and I'm going into this tiny little thought bubble. And that's where I stay for as long as my ego wants me to stay there. And so we don't totally miss everything around us. We miss all the signals. We must miss any kind of messages, because we are involved in these tiny little thought bubbles. So we jump from thought bubble to thought bubble to thought bubble. And the only way, as you mentioned earlier, is to be aware of our surrounding, of our reality here, is in the here and now. That's when we suddenly, wow, yeah, everything is actually okay. Whether my bank account is low or not, right now I am perfect. Right now it doesn't affect me. It only affected me in my mind. My ego did it so I could be uncomfortable, and I can do, and not to be happy, basically. The ego is there not to make us happy. It promises us happiness, but never makes us happy, because then that would be death for the ego.
You said that a little bit differently than I've understood it. So that's why we're doing an interview. So, all right. So let's talk about the ego. So the ego thinks or believes in itself that if you are happy or you're comfortable, that it will die.
Well, yeah, because it continuously needs, it's an artificial kind of construct. And the moment we are happy, the ego steps aside and says, hey, what about me? What about me? The moment you are happy, really, then the ego, well, look here I am. And it comes back very quickly with some kind of fears for the future, or some guilt from the past, so that you are really focusing on your ego again. And I mean this ego here, the negative ego. I don't mean really the self-respect kind of, that's a little bit different. But I mean the ego which identifies totally with our physical body. I have a video on the ego there where I explained that it was meant as a warning sign for us in case there is danger when we are hungry. It's sort of like the warning light on the dashboard. That was the original idea for it. But then we became so identified with our body. We don't know that we are spiritual beings, but we identify with our spacesuit, so to speak, which we have here on Earth, and think that is us, which is not us. And so that's why the ego became very big and sort of dominates our thinking pattern and behavior pattern totally, because we think we are our body.
So in what part of our growth or evolution, where did this start with the ego? Why is the ego have that type of a mindset of the me?
Well, if you go spiritually, my belief and deep understanding is that we are all perfect spirit beings, angelic beings. We come from the pure absolute reality. And a long time ago, some of them decided, hey, we want to have our own life, our own world, and create our own world. This is called in the Bible the fall of angels. So we have been perfect beings and slowly separated us from the highest energy, which is love. And we have become self-centered, self-focused, self-egoistic more and more, until we fell so deep into the material universe where we are right now. And in the way, we have lost all our energies, because that is the energy. There was some energy given to us to create our new world, but we wasted it. And now what we do, we steal the energy from each other. We suddenly, through trying to impress others, to manipulate others, etc., to sex, to drugs, whatever it is, we want to have energy, because everybody is low on energy here. And that creates a very difficult environment for everyone, not only individually, but also collectively. We invade other countries for the slaves, for oil, for gold, you name it. It is all about energy because we are all totally low on energy, individually and collectively. And that creates a strong, and again, the ego is in identifying with our body. That's why the ego is so strong. It says, hey, I can hardly survive here. I need food. I need energy. I need drugs. I need sex. I need everything. So that's why our ego drives us so tremendously, because we are all low on energy.
That's very interesting. I never thought of it quite that way.
Let me, if I may, one story here added to, because this truth.
Oh boy, a story.
No, you know the story, but I like to explain it a little bit different. This truth was given to us by Christ long time ago, and I think it's the most powerful parable about the prodigal son. The father, the rich landowner who has got two sons. One of them goes to him and says, Father, give me my inheritance. I want to make my own life. I want to go into the world. And the father reluctantly lets him go because he would never interfere with the free will. God never interferes with our free will. So this young man goes out into the world, has his inheritance, and in no time he loses everything. He goes so low that he finally sleeps with the swines, as they say, and sort of really hit rock bottom. And he remembers that the servants in his father's home live better than he did, and then remorsefully he says, I will go back to my father and ask him to be a servant in his house. And then he eventually goes back. And when the father sees him coming, the father runs to him, embraces him, and asks his other son to please prepare a feast as well, give him a new coat. Now, the story is very important for two things. A, we are coming from perfect existence, perfect being. He was that rich son who was living in abundance. You and I, we all come from this high evolved state of being. And then we have been given this energy package, and we have lost it. And right now we are all basically sleeping with the swine, so to speak. We are really at zero, and we do crazy stuff to each other and to hurt others. And that's the unfortunate situation we have right now. Where,
So, when you say that's the unfortunate situation right now, are you talking about current events or kind of the last 100 centuries?
Both. I mean, the whole mankind evolved to the point that we really stole energy so much from each other, from the planet Earth. We killed the animals. We have destroyed our planet by our greed for physical existence, not for spiritual, but for physical existence. So that is the unfortunate situation we are having here. So yes, in both ways, we are also having sort of, unfortunately, anyway, that's, I see it.
So you once quoted Alan Watts as that we are caught in a thought bubble, and you spoke of that earlier, that often gets stuck and we get lost in it. So where are your belief systems as far as do our thoughts create reality?
Most certainly, yeah. As I said, we have the small reality. If we are stuck in a thought, for instance, if I think about my low bank account, I am in that reality. It's a tiny part of reality.
Right.
And you really see the bigger reality, surely. And our reality is created of our thoughts, which are in a way together with our emotions. They create our emotions, our sensations, our actions, and our words. And all of this creates our reality. And if they are driven by our ego and by our needs, then, of course, we are having a painful life. The Course in Miracles was so clear by saying there are only two actions. One is giving love, and the other one is crying out for love. We can also say that one is giving energy and crying out for energy. Most of us are in the crying out for energy kind of mode, and rarely are in the giving of energy mode. But we can be getting back into the giving of energy when we truly remember who we are, and when we connect to divinity within ourselves, that eternal source spring of energy. And then we are giving, and then we are helping, because the highest form of love is service. And if we are of service to others, that's when we are coming from abundance and not from lack.
So is this how you're defining a type of mindful living? Is that how you would define the mindful living of living in the now, to where accepting or creating your reality, but at the same time accepting what is happening?
I would go a step further. I would the reality which I'm facing right now is a reality I have created through my words, actions, thoughts, and sensations in this and my past lifetimes. Right. Because what we are living on in a rewind of our past lives, whatever I experience today are energy blocks or concepts that are coming back to me for me to clear up right now. If right now some accident happens and so on, that accident was stored in the computer through my past actions or words, and now I'm facing it and I have to deal with it and clear it up. We are doing nothing but reliving our past lives, moment for moment, day by day, so that we have the opportunity to clear it up. So when you say mindful living, that means to me to become aware of the energy blocks that I get every day and look at them and says, why am I suddenly upset? Why did I have this horrible phone call? Why did I have a fight with my wife, etc.? These are the moments when it says, why did it happen? What does it reflect me to? Why is it happening, etc.? And what can I do to overcome it, to make amends, to ask for forgiveness, etc., to clear my karma? Mm-hmm. So that is for me, mindful living is to really be aware that nothing happens here by accident. Everything is carefully orchestrated and planned by ourselves through our past life. And much of it we knew before we incarnated. We see sort of a rough scheme of what might happen in this lifetime, difficult situation that we have to overcome, learn and grow and leave behind. We have all totally 100% agreed to come here to this world. Nobody is here against their own free will, because this is only a school of 30,000 days. It's very short. And it stops with graduation, which is death. So it's a celebration in a way. So that is the whole purpose here on Earth. Earth is not our home, is not our permanent existence. It's a short time where we have the opportunity to clear things up.
Mm-hmm. So how do we determine what those things are that we bring into this life that need to be cleared up, that need to be handled?
How do we determine? We have determined it in the past by doing anything that was against the law of life, love. Consciously or subconscious. Most of it, we were not even aware of it. See, we do all these, everything what we do against the law of love comes from our feeling of lack of energy. If you go back to all the times when you think you have hurt somebody, does something really wrong or stupid, you only did it because you were feeling a lack of energy in yourself. The moment you felt at peace or abundant, you wouldn't hurt anybody. You wouldn't do anything stupid like this. We did all our stupid things because we think we haven't got enough energy. And all the stupid things that I have done in the past, in many past lifetimes, are eventually coming back to me. And I have the great opportunity in this lifetime to clear that up.
I see. Okay. So do you have a process that you practice that gives you the ability to determine kind of create a punch list of these are things that I do need to clear up. These are the things, where does that list come from? Where do you determine what are the things that you need to clear up from your past lives?
Well, I surely am aware of certain habits and behavior patterns and thought patterns that I don't like. So I try to steer away. But most of it, I just don't know, Eras, because I don't know what the next 5 minutes brings, the phone call I get. I cannot predict this in advance. I have to be vigilant alert of what is happening to me from moment to moment. That will tell me what I have to do. So I don't have to do much planning, except, of course, on the problems or the weaknesses I'm aware of. Yes, I will. I try to work on those. But it comes automatically to me as it should. And that comes from the causal computer. If you go to my video and on you see how karma works, it's very clear how we store all our unloved actions and words in the causal computer. And eventually when these are planets, and when these planets move and either they are full or in a certain constellation, they download it back to us exactly what Christ said, the sowing and the law of sowing and reaping. Nobody escapes it, whether you're rich or poor. Whatever
Right.
we send out comes back to us. This also includes the positive things. But with the positive things, there is a little slightly different, because positive, the loving things, is our natural way of being. It's not even karma. That's how we are. We are love. And
Mhm.
whenever we are acting loving, we are acting our true being, our true essence of who we are.
So, for clarity for our audience, so when you are having an experience, a present experience, and it's not out of that love and that peacefulness, then can a person assume that this is something that is brought to me because I need to correct it? This is a block that's coming from my past lives that I need to be aware of. Now because I'm present, I'm aware of this. I need to correct this.
That can be, but there can also be a situation where you can give love and help to someone else, like somebody else needs some guidance, some help, or whatever.
Sure.
That can also come to us. So that is an opportunity for me to give love, to learn, to get my love muscle going again, growing again. So, but most situations which are what we call negative or somehow other situation which we have caused in previous lifetimes, there are a few other exceptions that we purposely may. For instance, if I want to learn more love, then I consciously incarnate into a family where there is no love, where the parents are ice cold. So that in that environment where I crave for love, I develop this love in myself. So sometimes the environment in which we put ourselves, or life puts us in ourselves, we have chosen so that we can develop certain quality of like compassion, like love, whatever it may be. But most of it, which comes suddenly today, if you go through the day to day, and you make reflect on it in the evening and think what happened today, and all these instances which were not loving are situations which you have created in this or in previous lifetimes, and it's now the opportunity to clear them up and bless them and thank them and make amends where possible and ask for forgiveness.
We are big believers of synchronicity, and that there are many, many different types of synchronicity. And many times those synchronicities create patterns.
Yeah.
And we believe that those patterns are literally messages of, listen, you're seeing this pattern, this is happening over and over again. You need to deal with it for whatever reason. So is that similar to the process that you're talking about? Is that it's like, well, how come, why does this person or this type of personality keep coming into my life? Because I haven't dealt with that I haven't learned how to deal with this type of a situation. I equate it to people who make money and they lose money. They make money and they lose money. They make money and they lose money. It's like, okay, there's a pattern. There's a pattern. So there's something that the universe is telling you, something that there's something that you need to deal with in this particular regard. Or relationships. Relationships are a great one as well. Well, I keep attracting the wrong type of mate. Then there's a pattern. There's something that you need to deal with that you haven't dealt with. Is that similar to what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's a grace of the universe that it gives you another opportunity, right, and another opportunity, another. Most of the energy package, which I mentioned coming back for us, are only at that one moment. And maybe we have to wait a long time again till we meet that soul again, maybe in another lifetime, in another sphere. So that is unique. But if, for instance, you marry always the wrong person and always have the same experience in your life, yes, there is definitely, you call it synchronicity, there is definitely a message like you. It's the spiritual word, and I strongly believe that we have got guardian spirits who help us. Really sort of puts your nose right into it. Now, finally, when will you get it? I mean, this is the patience and the grace of the universe that helps us to give us another opportunity and another opportunity, but we don't get them always. I mean, this type of synchronicity, as you mentioned, is something very beautiful, because you are given another opportunity and another opportunity. It just shows that the love of divinity of God is incredible. It's just beyond our imagination. He wants his children to return home. coming home is the main purpose why we are here. That's why we go through this school, not to amass money, fame, and power, but to really clear up our garbage and to return back to a higher vibration from where we once all came.
Mm-hmm. And at what level, if you know, at what level, how do I put this? When do you graduate? When do you graduate the University of Earth? You know, when all those blocks have been cleared, because don't we kind of, with each life that we have, don't we create more blocks?
Unfortunately, most of us do,
Mm-hmm.
but we can also clear them up. I don't think there's any set limit on how much and how little, because we also can eliminate our karma in these spiritual realms, not only here on planet Earth, but it takes much longer there, and it can be more painful because we no longer have the physical body. Here we have the physical body where it works like a buffer for our karma. We can take medicine, etc., to help the negative influences of our karma here, to make it a bit softer and more agreeable. We don't have the physical body, and in the spiritual world, it can be a bit more harsher and more difficult. So I don't know whether we can clear up all our karma here on Earth, but we can probably the major chunks, so that we at least get higher and higher and higher, because there are several levels before we return home again. And everywhere we have got teaching angels, divine beings who help us on and on and on. So the Earth is really for souls that have fallen very, very low and are given this very special opportunity to come to planet Earth for these few 30,000 days only or less, to clear up much of our karma as fast as possible. And the spiritual and the souls know this, because there is an enormous line of spirits who want to incarnate and can't because there aren't enough bodies. And we also have this incredible increase of population here. I mean, from 1.5 billion in the beginning of last century, we're now to 8 billion. This is sort of incredible what has happened. The souls are all coming here because life on Earth is getting more and more difficult. And these are challenging times. And when we face so we choose purposely very challenging times so that we can become free again. So everybody is here on their own will, desire, and wish. And whatever we face is very tough, but we all agreed to it prior our arrival.
Mm-hmm. And I think that as we've advanced over the centuries, we've also doubled the lifespan of most humans. And so we're just giving everybody a little bit, kind of like, extra credit, I mean, it's just like summer school.
Yeah, but as you said earlier, a lot of people are not necessarily using this gift and making it more karma. That's a danger, because people always say, well, a child dying after 5 years or whatever, 6 months or whatever, isn't it horrible? Just how do I know? If I would have lived another 60 years, that person, that soul might have burdened themselves like crazy. And as you know, most people don't really enjoy life. Most people are having actually a very, very difficult life. We are living here in America where life is a little bit more agreeable, but the rest of the world are many countries where life is extremely hard. And therefore, we have got hundreds of millions of immigrants who want to move into countries which are better than where they are living. So life is tough for the majority of people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. It's very, very tough. And, my goal, my partner's goal, Gary, we've been doing this work for, quite some time. And it is our goal to help people, ease that burden and make them understand, or help them understand that, it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
It really doesn't have to be this way. But you're meant to, you're almost meant on purpose to believe it is supposed to be this way. And we want to get people to be able to, look for more possibilities, new possibilities. And I remember when I was younger and I was first getting into, personal development. I mean, I was talking to people that were, like I had an interview with Jack Canfield, and we were talking after the show, and he said, I told him, I said, at that time, this was quite a while ago. I said, at that time, I said, I had a habit of overthinking things. And my mind would race. And he's like, yeah, he goes, that doesn't happen to me. He goes, I don't have that voice in my head. And I was just so taken back. I'm like, that's possible?
Right.
And he's like, yeah. I'm like, seriously? So, I mean, I was kind of embarrassed. I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
But that actually triggered my journey to let people know, listen, here's what is possible. And that's why I like to talk to people like you, where we can, spread this information out to people so that they can understand, like, I want other people to go, that's possible.
Right.
I didn't realize I could do that. Because once you realize you can do it, well, then it becomes a lot easier to pursue. And again, going back to the work that you do and the videos that you've done, I think that they are spectacular in becoming that they can be that point where you're like, really? That's what I want people to do when I'm talking to them. Really? That can really do that? Or even push back and say, no, that's not possible. Just, well, great. Now let me prove it to you.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a similar situation when I was a teenager. I didn't like my life as a teenager. It was difficult. I was, teenage years are horrible, particularly for males, I guess. So I was really, I guess today we would call it depression. At that time, we probably didn't even have a word for that. But then suddenly I came through the Beatles to Maharishi, to TM, Transcendental Meditation. And I learned that, and suddenly I was able to, wow, I don't have to think every thought. I can really, for 20 minutes, I can calm my mind. This opened the wood, and the energy and the self-confidence I suddenly got just by this very simple exercise, which, by the way, I no longer do. I do a different form of meditation. But that gave me so much courage that I was immediately, it changed my life instantly. And I left Germany. I went to Africa on my own. I would have never done this. I was so insecure and so not depressed. I call it depressed maybe, but just a simple way of learning a technique to calm your mind. And meditation is a wonderful way of doing that. Of course, if you're later on, then do also the prayer to go to the divinity within yourself. The kingdom is in us, is a similar way that we totally focus our mind on this divine energy that gives us peace and calmness and total secureness. I think that's the thing. So once we have an experience that, we can feel much, much better about life. I'm sure, I don't know what technique you are in sharing with your clients, but I'm sure it's the same way that you just take a breath and just, oh my God, I don't have to think every thought. I think that's a very powerful realization.
Exactly. So let's talk about thoughts for a little bit. You have this analogy of the typical life cycle of a thought. And this analogy was about an architect who wants to design a house. And that design starts with a simple thought or an idea. Can you share with everybody that analogy? I loved it.
Well, I said at the beginning that every thought wants to be actualized, wants to materialize. And this is a typical example where the architect firstly has a thought of a house, and then she draws it on a piece of paper and so on, makes all the plans. And then over time, it suddenly, eventually, with many builders and many workers and so on, it becomes a reality. And that is every other thought. As I said earlier, if you want to have ice cream, I would like to have ice cream right now. The thought will come back probably over and over again until I go to the refrigerator, get my ice cream. And we can do this and with virtually every thought. The problem is that we have got so many thoughts and so fast that we are not even aware of them. But the thoughts which we're repeatedly thinking are the thoughts which will become more and more reality in our life. Now, there is another very important point here to mention when I said earlier vagabond thoughts and outside thoughts which can influence. But there's another source, and this is a very powerful source. It is actually spiritual possessions in a way, which are spirit entities, astral entities, which have fallen even lower than we have, and they also need craving for energy. And they give us thoughts. They can send out a thought, but the thought has to be similar to our own kind of what is in us. For instance, fear, or let's say, I like to have an alcohol, I like to have a drink now, I like to have a cocktail. So normally I wouldn't have a cocktail at this time, but this entity who wants to use my body to fulfill their old pleasure can then send this thought of into my mind, and suddenly says, oh, maybe, or it's 3 o'clock. Normally I don't have a cocktail, but why not? Let's have a cocktail, and I have the cocktail. The fact is that this was not my thought. The thought came from an astral being, and the astral being is now using my body to get the high, which the astral body couldn't do anymore because it doesn't have a physical body. Now, we are talking about here a large number of people who are addicted to whatever it is, are actually run by astral beings. And it may not even be one, it can be several who attach themselves to the neck area. I've made an interesting video called Spirit Possession. And it's based on 5 books by medical doctors, not by spiritual stuff, who actually write about this. And I mention all these books at the end, who have dealt with this all the time. These are mental cases and schizophrenia and so on, where there was no doubt that this was not the person who was sitting in front of them. It was another entity. So it may be a jump for many people to believe that we are having all these astral beings living around us. We call them earthbound souls. Most of them are not necessarily vicious and negative, but many can be. So we have souls that have not moved on into the spiritual world where they should be. They are so attached to the world, to the life they had before, they can like drinking or the whatever they have got on vices. And they no longer can live them out in the astral worlds as they need the physical body, so they attach themselves to human beings. Now, I know this sounds crazy for people who have never heard this, but I would invite you to watch my video on it and listen to the experts. There are some other wonderful videos on that subject on YouTube, and it is something to keep in mind when we have a persistent thought where we say, is this really my thought? Is this really coming from me, or is this coming from another source? So to ask ourselves, am I manipulated? And then also, if we feel we are, then go within, and also maybe some of the techniques are made, which I mentioned in the video, to undo and to let go of these possessive entities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry I brought this in, but since you mentioned thoughts, this is how they connect with us, because they can read us. They see our aura. They know exactly that this and that is not right and whatever. And here there's a weakness, and they jump into it. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's important to be as much as possible of positive energy and feel a certain abundance. And I think one of the biggest tools which we can use is gratefulness. To feel grateful throughout the day, from morning till evening, and thank God for this. Thank you for my legs. Thank you for my hands. Other people don't have hands. And the simple things around me. Be grateful for everything. The moment we come from gratefulness, we are no longer coming from lack of energy. It's a very different thing. Suddenly we are able to give versus asking for something.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that you can even be grateful for the bad things that happen, because they are learning experiences. They are events that they're opportunities to grow and learn and to become better. And if a person has just one goal in their life, it's it was the way I grew up, is simply my goal is to be better today than I was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be, whether it be physically or mentally or spiritually, to make sure that at some point there is some type of growth in my life. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big, and gratitude is one of the biggest ones. I believe that's the that's the jet fuel for the universe. And the more grateful you can be for everything, then you'll start to become more grateful, and you will become gratitude yourself. And now going back to what you were talking about with the entities and such, part of one of our programs, we introduced to people what we call sentinels. And sentinels are that voice in the back of your head that, that says no, you can't be successful, or no, you can't be pretty, or no, you can't. Now, we don't we haven't gone to the point of them being astral entities, but just as powerful, they can be your parents, it can be your grandparents, it could be, you know, a relative, it can be a teacher, it can be, you know, anybody that's in your life that has at some point, you know, put a limitation on you. And most of the time, this is as a child, but it can happen in adult life as well. And, you know, to understand that a lot of times in our teachings, a lot of times these limitations are put on a person out of love. In many cases, they're out of love because that person who put that limitation just doesn't want to see you hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want you to, you know, don't go into this, you can't do this business because if you fail, it's going to be terrible. Or you don't want to get into that relationship because if it doesn't work out, you're going to feel bad. You know, and again, it's all out of in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, it's out of more of a protection aspect of it. But we take it in, especially when we're younger, we take it in, and it simply becomes part of our foundation of our belief systems.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, of course, we have to question everything we grew up from our teachers, parents,
right.
Religions, very much. We have to
Yes.
question.
Yes.
And for me, the best method to conquer it is always Byron Katie's message, to ask these 4 questions. The first question, is this really true? Can you know for sure that what you think, like I'm too thin or whatever, is true? And then also find later on 3 reasons why whatever it is maybe benefit for you. So her famous 4 question, which we have made several books together by Katie and I, are very simple and very straightforward, and they really set us free because, and Katie always says, the only problem in the world is our confused mind. Mm-hmm. Our confused mind, and the clarity comes the moment we question whatever it is that upsets us and makes us in one form angry or upset or miserable. And when we really explore it and ask, is this really true? Can I know for sure that what I believe is true, has happened, is true? Then we will find out that virtually never is the way as we have believed it. These beliefs, yeah, as you said, they come from our parents and environment and so on. These old programs we have to question. It's not easy, particularly when you get older, but you go stuck on these things. Yeah,
and we do. You know, and once what we have found is once we can simply just shed light on it, it just absolutely gives people freedom. They're just like, oh, you know, it's like, and you said it's like that's not what they meant to do, but it's just simply how you took it in. That was your perception. So that leads me to my next question that you have. You call them thought complexes. Can you go into detail about what a thought complex is?
Well, the thought complex is basically a group of thoughts, similar, like-minded thought. Everything works in this universe on like attracts like, the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And the thought as well. So if I have a little fearful thought and it goes out and leaves me, that fearful thought can find other fearful thoughts around it, and it becomes maybe a big thought complex where a fear. It becomes more energy. So it just becomes bigger by accumulating more and more thoughts, smaller thoughts of similar vibrations. Mm-hmm. And they can be very powerful. And I will give you a typical example. For instance, if we have got in my video, I think thoughts are alive. I have it where when we have a coworker who we do not like and we really wish them ill, this thought leaves us and this thought goes over to our coworker. And if the coworker has similar vibrations, like for instance, hates, dislike in himself, then it will attach itself. And there it can come bigger and bigger in that co-worker, also with additional thoughts. So that the co-worker suddenly becomes very angry and does something horrific, like, for instance, kill somebody to take an extreme form. We then are karmically related to their action because we have initiated it. That's how powerful the law is. So we are actually connected partially to that person, to that soul. And in this lifetime or another lifetime to undo it. So therefore, it's so important to be careful what we are thinking, because these thoughts are alive, they leave us, and they can do a lot of harm to other people. And eventually, everything comes back to us.
So that's similar to the Akka chords.
The Aka chords.
Yeah, the Aka chords from the Hawaiian. I always mispronounce this.
Ho'oponopono?
Yes, please. Yes, correct. Where all those Aka chords come from you, but they're connect to everyone that you have these
Oh, I see.
similarities
Yeah.
and such. And the idea is to sever those Aka chords from the people, the energy cord, the energy, the energy connection from those people who are not of that you've somehow connected to, but you don't really want to continue to be connected to.
Perfect.
So, now, so when I heard you talk about the thought complexes, it made me think of modern society. It made me think about social media, to where what we've created with our technology is we've created these echo chambers of like-minded individuals, and that there are positive aspects of it, there are negative aspects to it. Do you see that same type of relationship?
Oh, it's a super example. Yeah, we have sort of really made big things out of. A lot of them are just only assumption of horrible things, which some conspiracy things are out there. We have basically created them out of the blue sky and then made them very big, and everybody hooks into it and puts awful stuff, adds something to it. Yeah, definitely. That's a typical example how somebody brings a thought into the internet, into the YouTube or whatever. Everybody, some others who have got similar thoughts in them jump into and give comments, make it bigger, share that video, and it becomes very, very big. And suddenly maybe there's no truth to it, or maybe truth to it. It doesn't matter. In each case, it is a thought complex which has already, in a way, materialized itself in a video.
Right.
And it can easily then materialize itself further by, as we have had in the 6th of January, where people are really going and marching out. That was a result of thought complexes, of nothing else. A typical example. It started with a few people who had these kind of thoughts, and then more and more people hooked into it until it became a violent situation of expression. And yeah, thank you. That's a very good example of, and that's why I always say, stay away from these things as much as possible. I think the social media, they give us so much negativity, unfortunately, that I was thinking twice of going on YouTube's and so on. And of course, I thought I didn't want any negative comments on my videos, but for some reason, they are not there. Once in a while, once in a month, I've got somebody with capital letters writing, no, Jesus didn't say that. And yeah, it's fine. I can handle that. But there is no negativity, but I can handle it. But it is difficult. And particularly I tried TikTok, but TikTok is now gone so bad in a way that I think I'd rather keep my fingers out of that one. Yeah,
that's a whole nother interview.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's insane. So, I have seen this happen, again, just staying with the social media, narrative of where you have some big groups, influential groups, and how they have learned to use these systems to manipulate, influence, and such. I mean, January 6th is probably a really good example, but it can be for virtually anything. And again, going back to what you said, you need to simply question everything and not just accept it because it's there. Back in 20, 30 years ago, it was always known that if it was in print, it was true. Period. No, it's right there. It's in print. It's true. It's like, no, it's not. It does, it still doesn't make sense, even if it's in print. So no, this is not. And now what I've seen is that thought process, that belief system has actually translated to, no, it's on the internet. It's true. Or no, I saw the video. It's got to be true. And I see a lot of this stuff where, we'll use January 6th as an example, that person's doing it, so that justifies me doing it as well. Yeah. And that's the dangerous part.
Because the anger that person expresses is in me as well. And I'm happy that he expresses that anger, and I have it too. All right, let's find like-minded people on the internet or in my village to do something similar. Yeah, this is the thing. Anger is like a virus.
Hmm. Yeah, this morning I was listening to a newscast, and they showed someone, I'm not going to go into the details, but it was somebody who was very angry about a particular group of people. And he literally on this video said, I'm going to go out, I'm going to go hunt them down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, and the fact that the video was still up is even more unnerving. But this was somebody who was so angry, and the reporter said basically what we've been talking about is that now other people, he's going to give other people that idea or justify the action, and like, well, he's doing it, so I can do it. And then another person, another person, another person, and at some point there has to be that time where we just say, no, it stops here. This has to stop here. This can't continue.
How will you do it? How will you do that?
Well, I mean, in the case of when we're talking about about the internet, and we're talking about social media, I mean, it's times like that where I'm like, this is where something like that, I believe, needs to be taken down.
Yeah, but then you
It
come
does.
into censorship. I fully agree with you,
Yeah,
but then you come into censorship. Or like, for instance, take
I know.
Alex Jones, who sort of denied that the Newtown kind of killing of all these children never happened. It was just in stage. I mean, he insisted it almost to the end. And a lot of people believed it. There we have got the opposite of truth. There we have purposely given falsehood for whatever reason. I mean, he got a lot of viewers that way, and he made a lot of money by telling these stories. And I think that is, unfortunately, the motivation with a lot of media, and particularly television outlets. They don't care what they say as long as they get the viewers, and they give them what the viewers want. Fox has very clearly mentioned that they did all these years what the people want, not what is necessarily true.
Right.
And they made a lot of money that way. So always follow the money trail.
Exactly. I agree. That's exactly how I put it too. Now, in this case, I mean, I'm not I understand where the other side of that argument, as far as censorship, is akin to, decades ago burning books.
Yeah.
And, I mean, everyone does have the right to their opinion and such. But I think somewhere, especially now, because things have just kind of mutated to where they're at, we need to start looking at somewhere a line has to be made. And
I think we reached it, but it is very, very difficult to define that line before we come to totalitarian kind of government. So, yeah, I haven't got the answer for that. I just do it individually. It says, look, you know exactly whether the news you're hearing gives you inner peace or not. Does it contract you or expand you? And the same applies to any video or movie you watch. Is it something which makes you more angry, upset, depressed, or is it life enriching? I think people have to learn to look for the life enriching. It doesn't mean we have to run around with blinders and don't see what's happening in the world. We will know exactly. We know, as you mentioned, that the climate is changing and the political situation as well. We always get that information, what is necessary, important for us. But the main thing is to be very selective and careful what we absorb. It's the same way we do with our food, where we try to be careful not to put the negative thing that also implies to what we hear and what we see. We can have choices if we speak about the medias. It's different if we are in a war zone and suddenly everything collapses around us. We can't run away from that, but we can run away from videos and stations on YouTube or television stations that want nothing else than keep our adrenal going. And adrenal going is always with our ego. Adrenal going, our ego is afraid of losing its comfort. That's what it all comes down to.
Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, I think that's a great way to close the show today. With that in mind, then so let's say, for example, a person is starting to have kind of that negative feeling, that negative thought. What is the question that they should ask themselves? Is this the ego? Is this my ego talking? Or is this fear talking? What do you ask yourself when these thoughts start to somehow appear?
Well, what I do is always, if I can, if the situation allows it. Sometimes when you're somewhere in a busy environment, you can't right do it, but you will do it later. I will do it later. It says, go within, it says, and ask Christ within myself. It says, look, this is difficult. I have this tremendous reaction here. What is happening here? What can I do to make it? Is there anything I have to do, undo, to forgive, etc.? What is the situation reflecting back to me? Why am I facing this?
Mhm.
And if I really go into quiet, into a space of quietness, I usually get a good guidance and to remember what it is, because the outer world is nothing but a mirror of ourselves. So whatever upsets us in the outer world is in us. The outer world only mirrors back to us. On my video, The Law of Projection, I explained it very clearly. So it is always in us. So that's where we have to change the original movie script. To really look at it new. And we do this usually through forgiveness, remorse, and making amends, and recognizing it that we have made these mistakes. But the problem is not out there of our outside of us. It may look that way, but the problem is always inside. Whatever upsets us in the outside world with a certain person is always something within ourselves. As Christ said, we ignore the beam in our own eyes, but we focus on the splinter in our neighbor. It's the same story. It's the law of rejection.
I have nothing to add to that. That was perfect. Hans, thank you so very much for taking the time to spend with us. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. If there's anything that we can do for you in the future, please do not hesitate to contact me.
Thank you, Russ. It was a pleasure.
This has been an absolute pleasure for me, and I'm sure for all of our viewers as well. I want to wish you well. I think you're going on a trip.
Well, to Europe, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just to Europe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
My wife has been looking again, so she wants to go back as well. We've been there a few times, and I love it. I really do. So again, thank you so very, very much, and safe travels to you. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Russ. It was a pleasure and honor. Thank you so much.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
The storm isn't coming. It's here. And most of us weren't ready for this onslaught of trials and tribulations we're currently facing. They require new concepts and new tactics to prepare you for what lies ahead. We want to show you how to unleash the full sum of your entrepreneurial potential, challenging all of your energy, harnessing all of your power into a force of unstoppable momentum. If your growth and continuing evolution of your life are of paramount importance to you, and if you genuinely aspire to make 2023 and beyond the most fulfilling of your life, then it's crucial to make the most of every opportunity that comes your way. We offer you a turning point in your life, in your career, propelling you towards the business success you've always dreamed of. Please, don't miss out on this chance to break free from the shackles of financial hardship. Don't lose this opportunity to elevate yourself to new heights of business mastery. Claim your free VIP ticket now. Get exclusive access to Gary and Ross and seize the $1,600 in bonuses that we've set aside for you. Do it before it's too late. So click on the registration link below and let us support you every step of the way on your journey beyond success.